right, welcome back to another episode of Phoenix Edge. This is an RPG and gaming news podcast. My name is Hat.
And I am Stan.
And today we are going to be giving our thoughts and impressions on the recent Sony State of Play. Specifically, we are going to be focusing on the more RPG-centered games there. So we're going to be looking at Genshin Impact, the Pathless, Godfall, and TemTem. So we're going to get into more details specifically on each one and kind of talk about them, talk about our impressions. If there's any controversy surrounding them, we'll definitely be hitting it. So for Genshin Impact, we'll touch on the Breath of the Wild copycat accusations. For TemTem, there's a little bit of Pokemon stuff. Godfall had some controversy. I don't want to say controversy, just people felt like that trailer was boring. And the Pathless, there's some interesting gameplay designs with that as well. So we're going to touch on that stuff and just give our impressions. And then we're going to wrap things up with just talking about the state of play in general. Some people were kind of upset about this state of play. They didn't get the memo that this was not a PS5 state of play. So we're going to give our impressions on that. And then we're going to talk about the recent failure of Tokyo RPG Factory, continued failure, and Studio Istolia. So there was a $1.7 million loss attributed to them from 2019, and that's in large part due to Oninaki and then Studio Istolia's closure because Project Prelude Rune was canceled. And so we're going to talk about that and get into what went wrong there and how does this impact the future. Is this something that Square should continue to invest money in, or should they start more studios like this? We're just going to get into it. And then we're going to have two more Discord questions, and that'll wrap up the podcast. We have one question from BioPhoenix who says, what RPG has the best sounding food you wish you had in real life? I have to be honest, I think the award for the oddest question thus far in Phoenix Edge history goes to BioPhoenix for this question. But I'm all in. Yep. We're going to talk about food and RPGs. And then we're going to talk about, from Decoy Manta again, a regular question contributor, says, which is your favorite non-traditional leveling system? This doesn't mean that a level-by-level system is completely gone, by the way, but more that character growth is enhanced through an interesting concept system. Examples include things like skill trees and job systems, as well as more unique ideas like Final Fantasy X Sphere Grid, Mana Kima's Grow Book, I probably mispronounced that, and Chrono Cross's boss-only star levels. So, got a lot of interesting stuff to talk about today, and we're excited to get to it. But before we do, we just want to throw out there at the top of the podcast, we're changing up a little bit for this podcast only. We did have a vote last week on what game we would be discussing going into the future in a more spoiler fashion, similar to our prior discussions that we've done, such as the 7 Remake, Crisis Core, Dragon Quest XI, things like that. And from the games that we had selected there, we had mostly a pretty good turnout for the vote, but there's still a few people that can vote that we need them to vote. So the games that you can vote for are Ni no Kuni, Super Mario RPG, Tales of Vesperia, Final Fantasy IX, or Final Fantasy 15 Royal Edition. And the people that we are looking for a vote from is Unbound Monado, Ultima Cloud 7, Kyle Moore, and Brandon Badger. Again, Unbound Monado, Ultima Cloud 7, Kyle Moore, and Brandon Badger. If that's one of you four, you all took place in the Guess the Mystery Character component of our podcast, so you get to vote on the next discussion piece, and you are the only 4 left that have not voted. So if you would not mind, let us know in the description what game you want to vote for. Ni no Kuni, Super Mario RPG, Tales of Vesperia, Final Fantasy IX, or Final Fantasy 15 Royal Edition. To give you guys a kind of breakdown of what's currently where, Final Fantasy IX is currently in the lead, and then Super Mario RPG's right behind it, and then behind that is Tales of Vesperia, and then Ni no Kuni. We did not get any votes at all for Final Fantasy 15 Royal Edition, so if you want to throw away your vote, you can vote for Final Fantasy 15. But outside of that, I would probably steer for it towards the other ones and see if you can sway the vote. the vote is close enough for you to make a difference. And yeah, if you both vote for Ni no Kuni, that'll win. Anyways, I'm not going to break down each game, but I'm just saying it's close enough for at least 4 of them to win. So make sure you get your voice heard, and we're just excited to carry on with a new RPG. So make sure you vote in the description. We would appreciate it. Anyways, so moving on. Stan, we had a state of play this last week, and there was some interesting games announced there. It was mostly an indie event, but there were some interesting topics there. So I think the first one we want to jump in here is Genshin Impact, and I'm going to go ahead and get this trailer on the screen here. But this is a game that's kind of gotten a little bit of criticism because initially when it was launched, some people really felt like this was just too much of a copycat for Breath of the Wild. And, I can see what they're talking about, but having actually checked out more of the game, I don't think that's completely fair.
Yeah, I had actually forgotten that this was the game that got that criticism when it was initially revealed. I do remember that there was a lot of outrage, and I mean outrage, right, over this game's announcement and people thinking it was just a complete Breath of the Wild ripoff, essentially.
Yeah, dude, there was actually people that were outside of a Sony booth, and this was trendy for them to flick off the game and take pictures and post it to Twitter and tweet at Sony about it, because they were just offended that Sony would actually let this game exist on their platform, which is just preposterous in my mind. But yeah. One guy literally was outside of one of these Sony booths, and he brought his PlayStation 4, and then he slammed it against the ground in several pieces until it broke in half, and protest you're going to put this game on the PS4? I will show you. I'm never going to play another PS4 game again. And that guy has too much money. Because if he can just do that like that, I mean, that's so ridiculous.
Let's be honest. He wanted a reason to buy a PS4 Pro.
Yeah.
No, I don't actually know that, but I'm.
It's for this game. He wanted a PS4 Pro for this game. It's it makes me so happy. I need a PS4 Pro.
Yeah. In this most recent trailer that they showed, and then looking into it a little further, it didn't look that close to Breath of the Wild to me.
It's got the aesthetic for sure, and some of the creatures, but it seems to me, and I've watched some gameplay highlights, and because people have actually gotten to play the beta version for about 50 hours, so there's tons of footage of the game being played, and it's definitely inspired by Breath of the Wild. But there's whole cities and towns you can go to. There's NPCs, there's side quests. I mean, Breath of the Wild was much more in the wild, right? It was much more in forests and stuff. And there was little towns and stuff you could go to, but it wasn't as big as this. I mean, this seems more rooted in typical JRPG sensibilities, I guess, is from what I'm getting from it. But I think that people really kind of jumped the gun with this when they first saw those first couple of screenshots and videos. Because it's not like Breath of the Wild at all. But anyways, so it's an action JRPG from MiHoYo, I don't know, coming out in fall 2020 for PS4. I don't know how to pronounce that. Sorry, guys. But it's coming to Xbox One, Switch, and Windows phones as well, but no launch dates have been announced for that. And it was publicly first revealed in June of 2019 at E3. The game, like we said, received criticism initially for looking similar to Breath of the Wild. Some people felt like it was a copycat. And anyways, moving on from that, descriptions from the PlayStation blog itself. So this is how the developer wants to promote the game. They're saying that it's going to be an element-based game. So you use 7 different elements and a wide range of unique techniques that use those elements. And it's going to incentivize different character setups because depending on what element you use with different characters, they will kind of interact in different ways. So there's going to be a lot of experimentation involved. You can have a party of up to 4 people. So it's just kind of really trying to push, exploration and experimentation with your party combat. There's up to 20 playable characters in the game. And the game will have co-op available across multi-platforms. So that's PS4, PC, and Android. Doesn't look like Xbox is going to have multi-platform with this.
That's kind of odd.
Yeah, we'll see. I don't know. Maybe they're still working the details out. But so anyways, so there will be a gacha system as well, which is unfortunate. However, we did get to see some initial reviews or initial impressions, and the people have said that they played it thus far, and the gacha systems were very light. They were not intrusive. The game was playable. They were able to beat the game within 50 hours or so. And now the developer said they're putting more into it. That was just the beta version, but they've promised to keep the, microtransactions and things like that to a minimum, but the game is free to play. So they need to be able to pay for the server costs and things along that nature. But yeah, that's kind of a rundown for the game. So we just talked about kind of the initial criticisms of the Breath of the Wild comparison. And I actually had a few more thoughts on that, like that were a little bit deeper. But I mean, is there anything else you wanted to say about this Breath of the Wild comparison, Stan?
Well, this, like you were mentioning, it uses a party-based combat system, either when you're playing solo or with multiplayer, from what I understand. So if you're playing solo, you're controlling one character, but you have the ability to switch to other characters or issue them commands, right, and stick to your other character. Kind of like a FF7 remake, although obviously not as like AAA of a game as that game, but like still, that's the general idea of the combat. It plays more like the most recent the Trials of Mana remake. It
Right.
looks like closer to that than it does to like a Zelda game, which is
It's vastly
not
different.
RPG combat. It's action based, sword combat, or bow, boomerang, that kind of classic 3D Zelda combat. And what this game's going for looks entirely different. It's like an elemental based system. So, I mean, visually, if you just look at it and you're not too familiar with action RPG combat for the more like RPG style games, I guess it could kind of look similar to Zelda. But once I saw more of it and saw how the characters were kind of taking on some of the boss enemies, it was like, this doesn't look like Zelda to me at all.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
that's the thing. Like I watched the first hour, like I didn't sit there and watch the whole hour. I skimmed through it, but I do see the Breath of the Wild influence. I'm not going to deny that, because there are certain areas where it does look a little Breath of the Wild like. And when you walk up to like interact with like there's some kind of magical stone or something that you can interact with, and when you touch it, it makes a similar sound to Breath of the Wild that I remember hearing. So there are little things like that. It's not exactly the same, but I mean, everyone that's played this game has said like this is not Breath of the Wild at all. Like it's a freaking JRPG. I mean, there's characters, they have stories. Breath of the Wild is very much, very premise based. It's not. I mean, there's a story, but that's not why anyone's playing it, right?
Right.
So it's definitely not the same in that regard. And I think the underlying criticism here, when people use that as a criticism, I find very weird, because Breath of the Wild is one of the most cherished games of the last couple of years. So
Right.
I would think that you should applaud a game that you are saying is moving the genre forward. And if they're moving the genre forward, then you're going to have other games copy it. otherwise it's not moving the genre forward. So this is like, it's got to happen. And the thing is also, okay, let's just play a small thought experiment here. Okay. Let's say that Breath of the Wild, or let's say that this game is literally like, we play it, you download it, you play it. You're like, this is literally a copycat Breath of the Wild, and it's got good reviews, but everyone's like, no, this is like, they just copied it outright. But like, what are we saying here? Okay. I mean, did Breath of the Wild invent the open world concept? Well, no, it got it from somewhere else, right? So since the early 1980s, with like original text adventures, they were kind of making this open world environment that you could interact with. I'm not going to say that Breath of the Wild didn't innovate it, but they did take something that was pre-established. Was Breath of the Wild the first game to use cel-shaded graphics that prioritized exploration? No. Because you can go play games like Journey, which is very cel-shaded, and it prioritizes the way the atmosphere looks, the way the world looks. It tries to soothe you with the music, and it's all about finding and solving puzzles, which is very Breath of the Wild like. It's just Breath of the Wild did it a little bit better. So, you know, that's why Breath of the Wild was good. And so I find it weird when someone's going to criticize something for copying something that's good. And I think that where people get a little hung up is if they think that it's literally a direct copy, and therefore somehow this game is going to garner fame, or it's going to be known in history as the one that did something first, as opposed to Breath of the Wild. And I see no place where this
There's
game...
no way that would happen. Like,
yeah.
Like, it's Zelda, right? Like, its place in history is
already established. It's one of the like best-selling Nintendo Switch games. I mean...
yeah.
Yes.
I mean, if anything, people will not remember the name of this game, or like what this game did, more before they forget like that Breath of the Wild was the first open world Zelda game, right? Like,
right. Yeah. So it just seems to me like a kind of a silly thing to get concerned about. And it's, dude, I'm just happy that if they were copying Breath of the Wild, they could copy worse games.
For sure.
Yeah. So, and the thing is too, the Zelda franchise, besides all the things that we just brought up that Breath of the Wild was built on the back of, right? Because Breath of the Wild was not the first open world game. It's interesting if you go back and look at the history of the Zelda franchise. I've been, as a slight tangent, but I'll tie it back to here. I've been doing some game footage recording on the side, occasionally for Pat Hallman, who, if you guys don't know who that is, he is the author of the Reverse Design books. Very good books. Great deep analysis of games like Chrono Trigger, Final Fantasy VII, games like that. And he's working with a client on a collection of analysis of like old Western RPGs. And part of it is he has me recording a lot of the footage because he's been using a little bit of an older computer to write and things like that. And it's just easier for someone else to record the footage. So I've been doing that, and I've been getting to play a lot of these like super old Western RPGs from like the late 80s. And one of the things we were talking about was there's this game, Zandu Dragon Slayer 2. It came out in 1985. And he said, he brought this up, and I didn't even think about it till he brought it up, but the game is very much like Zelda 2. And Zelda 2 came out in 1987. And so, I mean, Zelda 2 did everything better, but it's very much like, this is definitely what they played when they were thinking about, you know, making Zelda 2. They definitely played Zandu Dragon Slayer 2. It's just got the same type of exploration format and the same type of, you know, choosing your stats and everything like that. So it's just, it goes to show that, you know, everything's built upon something. And I think that as long as you're doing something a little different with it, which in this case they are, this is very much more anime based. This Genshin Impact with like the various characters and like all the cutscenes and everything like that people are talking about this game, it's just like they took something that was good and they're doing something new with it. And I think that if the only reason you're not going to give this game a chance is because you don't like that the trees look like something from Breath of the Wild, that's just really close-minded to me.
Yeah, it's not something to dwell on or get too upset about.
Yeah.
So otherwise you have to get mad at Zelda 2, like you said, for being a Dragon Slayer 2 clone. It's just a clone of Zandu from 1985, right? Come on.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know why they can't be original, right? You know, Jesus.
Yeah, I get your point. Of course, like it's silly. Like games, even games like cross genre are influence developers and what they want to do. I believe the developers of this game said they were inspired by Breath of the Wild. They said so, like openly, and also Grand Theft Auto,
which nobody's complaining about that.
Yeah, so
they're not like, oh, I'll just go play Grand Theft Auto 5 instead of Genshin Impact.
No.
Yeah. I don't. That's the influence where I'm just kind of scratching my head, like, okay, I guess I don't know, maybe that's something I have to play.
Yeah, I don't know.
Do they have like hookers hanging outside the city or something? I don't know. But what did you think about this game outside of the Breath of the Wild thing? Like you personally, like, does this appeal to Stan?
Not really. I mean, I like that it has co-op because I like co-op in RPGs, and I think I mentioned a couple episodes back, like I really want that to come back. And it has been kind of weak in the most recent Tales of entries that I've played. So I really do like that there's co-op in the game. That also kind of makes me scratch my head and wonder why that isn't available in the new Trials of Mana remake, But,
yeah, this is done on such a big level.
Yeah. So, and it's in 3D and everything. So I don't know what the excuse is, other than they just didn't want to implement online for Trials of Mana, is my guess. But and like run servers and everything for it so people can connect. But the thing that turns me off of Genshin Impact is it says it has a gacha system, which to me says even if it's not intrusive, that there's going to be a grindy aspect to the game. Now that may not be true. You may be able to complete it quickly and enjoy it, single player or co-op, but that's something that I don't really care for.
Well, let's think about this. What developer would say, "Oh no, our gacha system is totally intrusive"?
True, yeah. Like
nobody would actually. They're all going to be like, "No, it's not intrusive at all."
Yeah, right. So there's no way to know. You just have to wait for.
Well, we've had the beta version come out, and lots of people have said that it wasn't intrusive that played it. But that's the beta version. How much?
That's the beta version, and people are not. That's not going to be running for a long time, right? Presumably, when the full game comes out, in order to, I don't know a nicer way of putting this, but extract more money, right? From people, you put a gacha system in there, like that's what it's there for, is to make more money off of people who have already purchased the game. So, and if people enjoy it, that's fine, and everybody can decide how to spend their money. I'm not about it, but it's up to everybody.
I think there's like this. I think that like I'm just like in this age group where I'm just never gonna like that. And I think that like if I was 10 years younger, I think like I would have just grown up with it, and it would have just been like normal,
Right.
But now like I'm just like I'm not doing that. I'm just like immediately I'm just like nope. I don't know. Dude, honestly though, I kind of want to play it for like an hour or two, at least, because I watched some like IGN has like the first hour on their YouTube channel or something like that. And some other channels do too, because they got this early version. And I'm kind of intrigued. Like, the world looks awesome to run around in. The combat looks fun. I was watching some of these story sequences. The voice acting was surprisingly good. The music was great. And I like Breath of the Wild, but I like standard JRPGs a little bit more, generally speaking. Just because I like strong story, and Breath of the Wild, testament to how good it was, because it's not that type of just, let's go make my own adventure. That usually doesn't appeal to me that much, but I still really liked Breath of the Wild. So it's a testament to how good that game was. But generally speaking, from a design philosophy, I like tightly knit stories in my games. And so watching some of these story sequences and just watching, the production value on it, I really like the blending of having a Breath of the Wild aesthetic with a really strong story, or at least it appears to be anyways. And so I think that's just really appealing to me. But I'm with you all the way that, like, the fact that it has a gacha system in it makes me think that this game's never going to end, right? We're going to have the Terra Battle 2 problem where the game will end before the story ends, because they don't want the story to end, because people that are paying these transactions, they're not going to be able to extract money from them anymore. They're going to have to keep getting new people. So that's a problem. And just the fact that, will this ever have an offline version, because they start implementing all those little things in there? That makes it difficult too. So anyways, but I mean, if it's free to play, like, it's free to try, You can
always give it a try and see.
Yeah. Yeah. I did hear the PC version runs great, but the PS4 version from the beta version, people said it takes, to get to the open world, you literally, like, there's a loading screen that's like 5 minutes.
Ooh.
And then you're good. So, but the PC version doesn't have that. So I don't know if the actual launch version if they have fixed that, but just look out for that before you go download it and get disappointed. But yeah, we'll see. So that was kind of cool. And then we have the Pathless. Now, this game is kind of not really an RPG. It's got kind of some RPG elements to it, but it seems kind of in a similar vein to Genshin Impact a little bit. Let's get this up on the screen here. But it's got a really nice art aesthetic.
Yeah, that's what I noticed most about it. I remember this was announced back at the Game Awards, I believe.
Is that the first place it showed?
Yeah, I could be wrong about that. I didn't check. That's my memory. I could be wrong, but yeah, I remember thinking the same thing about back when it was revealed. So
yeah,
it looks really nice.
Yeah, it looks like it's really smooth to play. What's interesting about this is it's made from the developers or creators of the Abzu game, which I haven't played that, but that game was directed by or created by the director from the Journey games. So that makes a lot of sense, because it kind of has a similar fluid motion to it that those games had. But this is an open world cell shaded game, very similar to Breath of the Wild. I think this game is actually more Breath of the Wild than Genshin Impact, because they show at one point in this game that you can latch onto an eagle and just kind of glide around, right? But there's only a certain amount of time you can do it. And that really reminds me of the glider from Breath of the Wild. But it's funny because they also have like highly skilled arrow techniques, which reminds me of Horizon Zero Dawn. So it's almost like it's a blend between the two.
Yeah.
But anyways, what makes this game unique here, though, is the developer said that they tried from the beginning of the game to adopt a new gameplay style that hasn't been really done before. And that involves not having any game overs. There's no fast travel. There's no map. And this was all, like I said, an attempt to focus the game on giving it a unique feel from other games. So, because there's no game over, they have to create challenges where the penalty isn't restarting, right? It's some other type of penalty. So that's interesting. Yeah. What do you think about that though? What do you think about approaching a game from that structure, that there's no game over, there's no fast travel, there's no map. It's all supposed to be immersive. You're supposed to be able to tell where to go from however the world's built. It's just supposed to be that fluid. How does that sit with you, Stan?
So from a game design standpoint, no game overs is kind of, or like no fail state, I guess, if you want to call it that, is kind of like, like how is that going to work? Now, because like how is the game going to punish you for playing poorly, essentially, or not completing the challenge? Are you just going to be stuck and like the character is like not able to proceed? I don't know. And we see in this gameplay demonstration, there's kind of like a boss, like like a large four-legged like demonic looking creature that's like trying to find her in the tall grass at some point. And like does that
what's the threat?
Yeah, is there any tension in that moment if the player knows that they can't lose?
Well, I think see, I'm with you there. Like, because the one thing I didn't like about this trailer was I feel like they didn't do a good job of explaining why that's unique or why that's exciting. Because, okay, I can get on board with this is different, but if there is no game over, like you said, show me what happens. Like, what is the bad thing that happens if I fail against this creature? Why should I be careful? But that got me thinking, though. Not having a game over would incentivize experimentation more.
Yeah.
Because you don't have to worry about going to your last save state, or maybe that's how they do it. I don't know, but it would just involve more experimentation. It just blows my mind that you would have to restructure the reward format for a game that's been rooted in that's what a game is since the beginning of time, even with like checkers, right? Somebody wins, somebody loses. The idea that you would not have that is very perplexing to me.
Yeah. Like, now maybe they mean like there's no game over, but there is still like a fail state. Like maybe you can, like if this boss sees you and attacks you, like you can
restart,
die, and then just have to restart the battle, but it's not technically a game over because like you can't lose progress. I don't know. I guess we'll have to wait and see for them to clarify that. No world map though in an open world game.
I don't like that.
I do like that idea.
Oh my God, Stan.
The idea.
Okay. Okay.
Because I feel like the maps in open world games as they are now are like, especially in Ubisoft games, like Assassin's Creed and what's their other one? The Tom Clancy. The name is escaping me right now, but in a lot of their games, you go to a section of the map and you climb a tower or you plug something in. Watch Dogs is another one where you hack something, right? And then all of a sudden, like there's a big section of your map and it just has a bunch of things on your map. And that's the side content of the game. All you do is just go to each little area, which has like some kind of mission. You complete the mission, and then you go to the next area, you find the next tower or hacking device or whatever it is, and you do it all over again. And the missions are slightly more difficult this time, but they're the same missions, right? They're the same thing that you did before. That open world design to me is like very overdone, and it gets to the point where you're playing through the game, but all you're doing is setting waypoints to the area on the map and then just like following some sort of path on like a mini map, right, to get you there, and then activate the mission and then keep playing the game. If your map is too useful, I guess is the if your map is so good and it directs the player like exactly where they need to go to do this task, that is helpful, but then you kind of lose a lot of the exploration aspect of the game, in my opinion, which is like a big component of an open world game, is going to areas and finding things you didn't expect, or
So,
kind of mapping out the map in your head, like learning the lay of the land.
Stan,
So
Stan. Oh my gosh. Okay. So, okay. All right. Okay. So I've been playing a lot of these older 1980s Western RPGs, right? And they used to have the same exact idea as you, where having a map ruined the fun of the game. And holy crap, I do not like it. Because not having a map, I would get so lost. Now, in these older games, it's more of a hindrance because everything looks the exact same because it's all the same texture, right? It's all the same wall, cement wall or dungeon wall. So it's very easy to get turned around. But what a lot of people would do is they would draw their own maps. And that way, okay, I do have a map, but I had to put work into it, right? I had to look through every, nook and cranny, and then I made my own map. So I don't like that idea necessarily because I'm sorry, I'm not going to get a piece of graph paper out and do that. But I do think that they can have a healthy blend where they will have games that, they don't show you the whole map, but you have to discover an area first, and then it's on your map. So you still have to explore, but once you explore that area, then it's on your map and you can find it again much more easier because I just don't like not being able to find something. And I don't think that's fun for them to force me to be lost, because sometimes I only have 30 minutes to play the game, and it's very unrewarding for me to just be lost for 30 minutes because they want to force me to run around and try to find something. No, if I already found it once, just put it on a freaking map and let me see it. I don't, I already did the exploration part. So
yeah, I'm fine with a system that is, you go and discover a quest right somewhere, and then or maybe even you talk to some NPC, and the NPC gives you the general vicinity of my horse is lost over there, that, and then you're okay, over there, we'll activate the quest. That's fine, but
so do you like it? You like that in Xenoblade Chronicles, the original, where they would be oh, Tojo down by the river?
Yes, but there's far too many little side quests like that in Xenoblade Chronicles, and they're too inconsequential, I guess, is the best way to put it.
So it wasn't the lack of showing you on the map where to go. It was it's non-unique factor of it. It was just, that was the whole point of the quest, was to find it.
Yeah. But don't, the map design in most AAA RPGs and open world games that I've seen recently are go to this hub world or this tower or this device or whatever, and then all of a sudden that's going to generate a checklist of things for you to do, and there's just going to be a list, and we're going to put them all on the map for you to find them, and now just follow your little mini map and go to that point. Now, Xenoblade Chronicles, I just played that, and that's just as guilty. Like you pointed out, that's not good, but yeah, that's why an idea of no map kind of appeals to me, because it's well, you still need to have good design and direct the player to where they need to go. So how are they going to pull that off without a map, essentially?
There's a game that I just started playing recently that I think has a very healthy blend in a unique way, or at least to me anyways. I've been playing Ghost of Tsushima, and the main game does not have a mini map on the screen, so it's not taking up that real estate. Now, if you want to see the map, you can still open the menu and go to the map, so you can still see stuff, and then you can set landmarks. So you might, set a pin somewhere on the map and say, this is where I want to go, but there's no mini map while you're playing. And the only way to know which direction to go is you have to swipe over your controller on the little touchpad. And when you do that, it'll summon a gust of wind in the direction that you need to go. And it's almost just an environmental thing that doesn't feel out of place, I guess. It's almost like he like prayed to like the nature or something, and it just like the spirit guided him a little bit. But it just gives you a little touch like, hey, jackass, go to the left. Go in that direction, right? But it's not like a red marker, like it's not like Final Fantasy X or something where it's just like literally directing you like where to go. So I don't know. I thought that was a healthy alternative for the non-adventurous people like myself that are clinging to their maps.
That's interesting. Yeah, having the winds show you, like, kind of just push you in the right direction.
Right, but it doesn't. It's like 5 seconds. It's not
right.
Like it's gusting like for 20 minutes.
It's kind of like that reminds me another good solution, like in Shadow of the Colossus, when you push circle and the wanderer, your character, he holds up the sword.
Yeah, that's a good point too. I forgot about that.
The light to show you like which direction is the next creature, something like that. Like and that game still had a map, but I don't recall it. It didn't because the world was empty, but that was kind of the point. Like it was supposed to be lonely and kind of isolating experience.
Right. Yeah.
I don't know. We'll have to see what the Pathless can do. Maybe they can implement something like that where a map is not necessary, where some environmental factor, like you said, with the wind and Ghost of Tsushima can like guide you where you're supposed to go, but not have it feel like a Ubisoft open world game where I'm just completing tasks. Like I'm not exploring the world. I'm going to specific areas of the world because it checks a thing off my list.
Yeah. I mean, we don't have to dwell on this, but I have to admit, I don't like the idea of not having fast travel either, which from our conversation that we just had, I would assume that you like that.
Fast travel?
Yeah, no, that you like not having fast travel. Dude, I'm all about it.
It depends how big the world is, I guess.
Yeah, because that's the thing. Like, let's say like Horizon Zero Dawn. No way. I need that fast because it would take me like over an hour to get from one side to the other. I'm not, I guess that's a good point. If it's only like a 7-minute map, then okay, you don't need fast travel.
Yeah, like yeah, I guess it just depends how quickly you can move around the world. If there's like some sort of upgrade that allows you to just like in this game Pathless with the eagle, just like move really quickly around the world, which I think is kind of the idea. They want you to get like in a groove of like sliding and flying and moving really quickly. Then it may not be a big issue, but we'll see. We'll see. It's definitely
interesting.
Yeah. Well, I'm more skeptical about the lack of a fail state or a game over than no fast travel or no map.
Oh man, it's crazy how we're the exact opposite. Because like the game over thing doesn't bother me at all, but the other stuff does. So for me personally, like just to say what I picked this game up, or what my general thoughts, aside from what we've already said, is honestly for the trailer itself, I felt like this trailer was far too long. I thought that the presenter's voice was really boring, and I didn't think that it showed enough variety for what they were trying to bring to the table here about why it's unique. I really wish they had shown me more about the game over aspect of it not being there and how I can interact with the world in this unique way that they're trying to bring to the table. And I don't feel like they really showed me that. And for a trailer that's 6 minutes long, it was just a lot of the characters sliding around, flying with the eagle, which is cool. But, I've already seen that. And I just think that, that towards the end of the trailer, they're fighting this like behemoth, like fiery creature, which looks pretty exciting. And I feel like they should have almost opened up with that to kind of gain my attention some more, because for the first like 4 minutes, it's just them flying around this world. And it just like, I feel like this trailer could have been about 2 minutes and it would have been perfect, but like I said, it just didn't show off anything that really impresses me in the sense that of why it's unique. So I mean, it just depends on how much it costs.
Yeah, we'll see, I guess.
Yeah. Are you kind of in a similar camp?
Yeah, I'm not too interested to jump into it right away. I mean, see how it reviews, see how people describe the open world aspects of the game, and if their experiments were well done or not. I would be like really interested in this game after release if it gets like a split. Like if there's people who are like it's bad and other people who say like it's good. But if the consensus comes down that it's like average or above average, then it's kind of like, well, that's kind of the sense I got from the trailer. So, then I'd be less inclined to play it. But if it was like split, if there was some people out there who were like really, really love the game, then I might consider, giving it a shot at some point. Probably not for full price though. So,
yeah, for sure. Okay. So the next game we have here is going to be Godfall. And all right, I got this on the screen here. Let me get some of this going right here. Okay, let me make sure this isn't 4K while I'm trying to record this. Cool. So 1080p, that's good enough for me. All right, so it's coming out in 2020. This is one of the first PS5 games that was released, and it's also going to be in the Epic Game Store. So it's from developer Counterplay Games, and it's a new studio featuring developers who have worked on many games that we all know and love, like the Ratchet & Clank series, God of War, Horizon Zero Dawn, Diablo 3, and many others. So very good experience all around. Game is obviously an action RPG, and it's also described as a looter slasher in the recent trailer. Presentation. Go ahead.
That term kind of turns me off to the game, to be honest.
The looter slasher.
Yeah, because like looter shooter was a term used to describe Destiny.
Yeah.
Which is a game that I'm not too fond of, just because its gameplay loop is essentially do a mission. That mission gives you loot. That loot allows you to do a more difficult mission so that you can get more loot, so that you can, and on and on and on. Like a loot, it's like a loot-based progression system. We need better loot, better gear to keep going, keep challenging the next tier of difficulty.
Stan, we are the exact opposite. Because that just appeals to me infinitely. Anyways. Okay, so it's a looter slasher, Stan's favorite genre. Presentation really focused on a variety of different techniques and how they worked. So this was probably in response to the recent growing trend of, it's just CG. We want to see more gameplay. So they really focused on a lot of gameplay here. And in particular, we really saw just a general breakdown of like the combos and the different techniques that they use and the different weapons. And there was a lot of people that really didn't like this trailer. And so there was a ton of gameplay that was displayed here with the various skills being demonstrated, like I said, on enemies, with the detailed narration explaining what was happening on screen. But the presentation was criticized for enemies not being aggressive enough. So basically the enemies just kind of stand there. They don't look like they're really providing much difficulty while they're, these characters are taking their day out on these enemies. And then also when enemies were struck, they didn't appear to be enough weight behind the attack. The people felt like the characters were kind of delayed in their reaction, and it just didn't have the oomph that they were expecting. So I've seen this several times. This is pretty much all people are talking about with this, unfortunately. But what do you think, Stan, about the enemies not being aggressive enough for this presentation, and then also the animations themselves? Is this something that resonates with you, or not really?
No, I'm pretty much in agreement with the criticism of the trailer that's out there that you just described. The enemies don't seem to be putting up much of a fight at all, at least from what they've shown.
Do you think that was for presentation purposes, though?
It could be. It could be. They're just trying to get people really excited, and so maybe they scaled the difficulty way down, and we're just running through the enemies to kind of show off the cool character animations.
Yeah.
But then they had like a boss demonstration that the boss was definitely more aggressive than the regular enemies, which is good. You definitely want that, but
Right.
he was awfully slow, and his attacks seemed very telegraphed. And yeah, I don't know. It looked very hack and slash to me. It from what they showed, it looked like you wouldn't be punished very hard for getting hit, which is kind of the whole point of a good action style game. Like, you're supposed to not get hit, right? You're supposed to be able to skillfully know when to attack and when to defend. And they did say in their trailer, though, that the game is more focused towards offense, and they said like a good offense is a great defense. I think is what they said.
Mm.
They said it's more scaled towards offense, which to me makes me think of like a Dynasty Warriors style game where it's more about racking up kills and damage, like, and that being the fun aspect of it. But then there wasn't quite enough enemies on screen to have it like a
Right.
Dynasty type of feel. So
Dynasty Warriors is crazy. You like swing like an axe and like 80 people go flying.
yeah. So what is it then? Like it just comes off as kind of very generic hack and slash gameplay, I guess. And I remember watching the demonstration of the dual blades, and the guy was saying the guy explaining the trailer was saying like you can do a 4-hit combo by hitting the light attack button 4 times, and then you can do a heavy finisher move by using your heavy attack, and the character like spins around, kind of like a buzzsaw almost, and he would spin and like his blades would hit the enemy several times. And
yeah,
I'm just listening to his explanation, and I'm like, that sounds very cool, but I know that equates to like pushing square 4 times and then pushing triangle and then dodging or evading if necessary, and then just doing that again.
Yeah, this dude, I'm telling you, like, this trailer just made my eyes bleed. And it honestly, it's not like it's a beautiful looking game. I think it's a great looking game. And it's got some beautiful scenes in it, with the like red leaves and just, the fire and everything and the wind. And it looks cool for that reason. Like, it looks beautiful, but holy crap, it was way too long. That, like, I don't think like the combat was that interesting for them to explain it in that much detail. And I was kind of going with it a little bit like, okay, they're trying to show more gameplay. This is what people want. But then when they skip to, okay, let's skip to the long swords. Now the long swords have a wider reach than the short sword. And I'm like, dude, I know. I like, it's called a freaking long sword. Like, I was just like, oh my God. This is like, please, can this trailer end? It was terrible. And the presenter's voice, I think, was the developer, which is cool that they gave that guy, a chance to explain his own game that he's leading. But giving voiceover and getting people excited with your voiceover, that is an art form in of itself.
It's important. Yeah.
Yeah. There's people that have an entire career doing voiceover because they're good at it. They're good at getting people hyped up. This guy that was narrating this was terrible.
He did not sound very excited. No,
it was just like, yeah, he was just like reading a piece of paper. It was terrible. So, yeah, for that reason, it was just, I don't think this was a very good showing for this game. And it kind of makes me feel like overall, this was just a badly put together presentation for this game, because I don't get the impression that the enemies are going to be this non-reactive in the final game. Maybe I'm in a minority with that, but I do think that they thought, oh, let's just make the enemies, not very aggressive so we can really show off these combos and really give people an idea of how the game flows. And I can see why somebody would have thought that, but they have to have realized that people think this is actual gameplay, and they're trying to imagine themselves playing this game, and the enemy's like not really like trying to attack them at all. That's just, people are going to assume that's the main game, So
right.
just,
yeah, the game is coming out soon too. Like,
right. It's not like it's years away.
It comes out, so I suppose they could tweak the enemy AI. That's not something that's necessarily set in stone, but it didn't look like they were very aggressive.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's between that aspect of just a bad judgment call. I think this is a criticism of this entire present state of play was a lot of these trailers, but mainly this one, were I think far too long for just being long for the sake of being long. And I think that with this one in particular, it was too long. The gameplay itself, they were explaining to such an in-depth detail that it was boring, and the presenter's voice was boring on top of that. So it was just a bad call on so many grounds. So, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm assuming this is going to be a launch title for the PS5, and this might end up doing decently well for that reason. I mean, it seems kind of like a generic dungeon crawler to me. I was getting more like Diablo vibes, to be honest. Just go raid this dungeon, get a bunch of loot, get better gear, go to this next area, kill the demon at the end, that type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and maybe the sequel will be good. You know, but this looks like a solid 7 out of 10 game to me.
Yeah. Yeah, it didn't impress me too much. I'm not a big fan of the style of gameplay, kind of hack and slash and then dodge roll away and then go back in and hack and slash some more type of feel I got from watching the gameplay. So I also like I mentioned the spinning blade attack that the dual sword person can do. I was like, oh, that's a cool animation. What else can it do? And I saw that animation like 6 more times in this trailer alone, you know? And I was like, no, this game is not for me. I'm already bored of like what is supposed to be like the coolest animation for the character class, you know?
Yeah.
I'm like,
see,
no, it seems like it would get really old for me, like really fast. So
this seems like the type of game. Okay, let me back up here. When I was in the Marine Corps, right, one of the things me and a friend used to do is we used to go grab some beer. Then we'd go to GameStop in the $5 bin and just pick a random game that looked cool that we never even heard of. And we'd buy it and we'd go back and drink beer and just play it. And we'd only play it one night.
yeah,
This seems
time.
it seems like a perfect game for that. You know, really cheap, drink some beer while you're playing it. But I don't know if I'm going to spend $60 or possibly $70 on this. It's probably not, unless you know, it's so weird when a trailer comes out for a game that you have a higher expectation for, and then after you watch the like third trailer that they put out, you're like, oh, this is actually like this hurt the game rather than help it, you know. So anyways,
it does have online co-op with up to 2 other players, so you can be a team of 3 if you at the most, I think.
See,
so
I could see that being actually pretty fun then.
Yeah, that is a good aspect to it then, to maybe get it on a discount someday and play it. Or if you have the money, if you all 3 of you have the money to pay full price and you buy a PS5 and there's not much else out to buy because Horizon Zero Dawn is not a launch title, you know.
Right. You don't want to play the Pathless or whatever.
Then yeah, if you put down all that money for a new console, you want something to play on it, so maybe
give it a shot. Yeah.
Yeah, it could be for that.
Yeah, and they did say that there would be no microtransactions.
That's very nice. Yeah, that's good.
Because it seems like that's perfect type of game for microtransactions. So,
yeah.
But anyways, so that's an option. Not the greatest game shown here. Far too long. But let's move on to our last RPG for the Sony state of play. And this is going to be TemTem. I think I'm saying that correctly. Could be TemTem. I don't know. TEM. And this is clearly inspired by Pokemon. They don't even shy away from that. So I'm glad that they're not trying to act like, you know, they're coming up with some novel concept here. But effectively, this is a MMORPG, and it's taking a stab at the Pokemon formula. There's already a beta version out you can go buy right now on Steam. And basically, it's an online game that you can play with other people. You go around and collect these creatures called TemTem, and there's dojos that you have to go to defeat the leader of the dojo, which is very clearly Pokemon. And they're not even shying away from copying Pokemon. And it's getting really good reviews among the people that are playing the early version of it. It's gotten very positive reviews on Steam. People really like it. And I tried to look up, some negative reviews because there were so many positive reviews. And I saw 3 negative reviews, and all 3 of them said that they felt like it was a little grindy. And, it is an MMO, and MMOs tend to be a little grindy. So that is what it is. But there's 6 islands for you to explore. Your goal is to become the ultimate TemTem tamer instead of the Pokemon trainer. And you're trying to catch TemTem instead of Pokemon. And there's 8 dojos, like I said. But they're offering a heavily developed story campaign for the online game. And after the story is complete, you can still run around the world, battle other tamers, collect more TemTem. You can buy houses and do all sorts of other items or other things that are typical to MMOs. And this game was partially funded through Kickstarter. So it wound up with, we don't have the amount that it came from Kickstarter. But anyways, there was 500,000 copies through Steam's early access in its first month of release. So clearly very successful. And like I said, you can currently play it on early access on Steam for $37.99. And there's no monthly fee. Developer says that they will have microtransactions in the game, but it's going to be primarily cosmetic based. But that's just for server maintenance. So, Stan, I got a question for you with this game because it's getting a lot of positive reviews among Pokemon fans. When I go to read the reviews, all these people are saying, hey, I liked Sword and Shield, but this is exactly what I wanted from Sword and Shield. The graphics are better. The world's better. It's an MMO, so I can play with other people. Or it's just a kind of exploration factor that feels more alive. Whereas with Sword and Shield, they were like copying and pasting the same tree graphic a million times. Like, right, it was just very bland and boring. So what do you think about this, the fact that they decided this to be an online game with no monthly subscription as opposed to simply a single-player Pokemon knockoff game? Like, do you think that was a good move for them to go to, or do you think it would have been better for them to have done the single-player route, given it's kind of hitting a market with angry Pokemon fans?
I think online MMO style was a very good idea, and Pokemon should have done something like this already. But they've been, understandably to some degree playing it safe, right? It's because they have a formula that has worked for so long, and they sell so many copies of every new Pokemon game. So, but I have a friend who played TemTem for a while when it first came out.
How did they think about it?
What's that?
What did they think about it?
They're a person who was very into Pokemon, but is kind of falling out of it recently because they don't like the kind of attention to detail for the competitive play, I guess. Like, because they were into more of the competitive Pokemon side of things.
So this being an MMO would kind of assist that competitive play. Yeah,
from what I understand, the developers are like more conscious of like balancing the game for competitive play. And also the battles in the game are 2v2 style. So you have 2 trainers on one side and 2 on the other. And so I'm pretty sure each person gets a turn, like player 1 on team 1, then player 1 on team 2, then player 2 on team 1, and then so on, so forth. So that adds a different dynamic to the game, because I know Pokemon does have like a team battle system, but it's not quite like that. It's not 2 trainers and another 2 trainers. So that's different.
Yeah.
And they balance the competitive element of the game based on that aspect. So they enjoyed the game. He's not playing it anymore, just because people move on to other games. That was back in January. It's now August. So
right.
But I don't know. I think it'll do well. Because I think there is a lot of people who are kind of so on Pokemon just because it feels kind of like they're just repeating the same formula over and over again. And then with the kind of disappointment for some people with Sword and Shield and how it didn't kind of live up to their expectations, people are looking elsewhere. So
Yeah, I just wonder if the fact that it is an MMORPG, and they did say there will be microtransactions, even if they're cosmetics only, right? Because they said they're not going to have a pay to win type of factor here. They just need to be able to, since it's free to play,
right.
you know, well, you buy it once and then it's free to play online. So
monthly fee. Yeah.
Yeah. So for that factor, I know a lot of people just feel that either for the fact that it is going to have microtransactions, and they're afraid that, you know, maybe they say this now, but later down the road it will have them, or perhaps they just look at it like, I don't really have a time for another MMO game, but I do have time for a single player game, because MMO games tend to be, like you said before, I believe, grindy. So,
right.
You know, this is going to have a segment of the audience that would not pick this up because of the format that it's in. And given the fact that it is hitting the right marks with a lot of people for a lot of other reasons aside from being online, just because the graphics are much better than Sword and Shield, a lot more variety. There's that competitiveness factor here also that isn't really a thing, or as much so in Sword and Shield. I just wonder if they could have had like a smash hit with this thing if it was a single player game that maybe could have got ported to Switch down the road. I mean, I don't know. I mean, on one hand, I kind of lean towards that route, that there's a lot of people that just don't have time to play an MMO and they would rather just play a single player game. But I mean, an MMO Pokemon game is pretty badass.
Yeah.
Like as a kid, like I always would have thought that would have been really, really cool. So they're kind of hitting a nostalgic factor for a lot of people that never was a reality. Unfortunately, they were disappointed by it.
Mm-hmm. The whole idea behind Pokemon is the world is full of Pokemon trainers, and they're all trying to assemble the best team or catch as many Pokemon as they can.
And you can
right?
challenge them and stuff, and just run into one in the field and challenge them.
Yeah, like just the original concept of the idea kind of meshes well with the MMO design on its own. So
yeah, but I mean, the fact that there's not going to be a subscription fee, monthly fee too, also, I mean, I don't know. I guess when it's an MMO, I just look at it like, okay, this thing could be running for the next 8 years before they come out with another one.
True.
You know, whereas if it was a single player game, it would be a big hit on release, maybe. And then after that, people would be like, when's the next one coming out? We want another one, you know, and pretty soon you have an established franchise. Whereas now it might just become that trendy thing for like a year or two, and then everybody moves on to something else, you know?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Or this could be the origins of the Pokemon killer. In 5 years, we'll be surrounded with nothing but TemTem games. You know?
It's a possibility.
I know Pokemon's been going strong for 25 years.
I would bet against Pokemon in that race, but yeah, because Pokemon's like a cultural phenomenon at this point. But
yeah, is this something that appeals? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Is it something that appeals to me? Only if I was going to play it with a friend and like kind of co-op. Like I'm not an MMO person in general. The only MMO is ones that friends got interested in and then hooked me into, right? Which is kind of how I feel a lot of people are about MMOs. For me, it's an MMO is a way to spend time with somebody doing something that they find interesting, or maybe both of you find interesting. But personally, I've never been interested myself to like play an MMO without people I know, like in real life, you know?
Yeah. I gotta be honest. Oh man, I had that running at 4K. No wonder it was stuttering. Sorry guys. Who knew that you could play TemTem in 4K? So anyways, yeah, I got to be honest though. If it was just a single player game, I don't think I'd even be thinking about it because, growing up, like I was a Pokemon player. Like I would play Pokemon on my Game Boy, and there was these other things that were popping up that I would just scoff at, right? Because I was like, oh, they're just copying Pokemon. Like I would look at like Digimon, and I'd be like, oh my God, how cows can you be? It's literally got Mon in it. Like, and I don't know, maybe Digimon was out before Pokemon or something. I don't know. But to me, it was.
Well, it was in Japan, right? Digimon was like the first one, from what I understand.
Okay.
Pokemon, second one. But Pokemon had that anime TV show, which was localized. And so many people became aware of it through the TV show that just in people's mind, they think like, oh yeah, Pokemon was around before Digimon, because I think Digimon also had a TV show, but it was like at least 2 or 3 years late to like get localized and come to English territories. So to everyone in the West, like Pokemon was the first one and Digimon was the ripoff, but I actually think it was the other way around.
Yeah. So, well, regardless, I was clearly a moron as a kid, but what I'm getting at, what I'm getting at is, I felt like everything was a knockoff of Pokemon, which clearly wasn't correct. So I don't know. Some of that still lingers with me though, where I'll see stuff and I'm like Bakugan and stuff like that. And I'm like, they're just trying to cash in, which again, I don't know. Maybe Bakugan has been around longer than Pokemon too. I don't know. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but that's kind of the perception of just, this is a spin-off of Pokemon. I don't care about this, but I guess the fact that there is that online component to it and there's tight little communities around it that are talking about this because they've spent so much time into it and it's become a hobby of theirs. I think that speaks volumes of the quality of it and the interest, I guess, for me in this game. So I do have to commend them for that. So anyways, but this was the lineup for the RPGs at the State of Play. Wasn't a lot of them, but there was a few. And we have one more thing to talk about this here. This is going longer than we imagined. But some people are really angry about this State of Play. They apparently didn't see the tweets and other releases or the video description of the State of Play that said this was mostly third-party indie games and PS4 games. But what do you think about that, Stan? People really getting upset. A lot of downvotes on this presentation. Do you think it was a crappy presentation? What do you think?
I think it was pretty average presentation. Like there was nothing in it that really got me too excited. As far as the reception goes, I think people are just the same thing as the Nintendo Mini Direct a while back that had Shin Megami Tensei in it and not much else, right? People's expectations are just too high for these things. And with Sony especially, they haven't exactly hit these State of Play presentations like out of the park.
Right.
I believe their PS5 reveal was like the one that garnered the most positive.
Well, they had the 7 remake.
Yeah, they had the one with the 7 remake, which I think was like at the very end, and pretty much all anybody remembers that State of Play for. Right.
There was a Predator game also or something, but yeah.
Yeah. But they did try to warn people like, hey, there's not going to be any major PS5 announcements and no first party games on this upcoming one. But that's the tough thing about marketing, right? You can't get your message out to everyone. And I wonder how many people just learned of this State of Play through their favorite YouTuber or YouTube channel or whatever. And then they went to go watch it and they're like, oh, it sucked. Like I didn't get to see anything I wanted. That's the biggest thing to me is I think a lot of people go into it and they're like, they didn't show the thing I want. Like of the 2 or 3 things I wanted to see, I didn't see them. So this sucked. You know?
But they watched it, which is why they're doing a State of Play and not just, individual trailers. Right.
Yeah. They're trying to,
because you watch all of it. Because you wouldn't have clicked on the Pathless, but
yeah.
So I don't know. I see what you're saying. I guess I'm in the middle on it. I think that you're right that these people that are complaining about this, they didn't read the description, they didn't see the tweets from Sony, and that's all fair criticism, because if you're not going to be informed on it, on what you're watching, and they literally tell you like it's not going to be what you think it is, for you to get mad about that is dumb. However, I think we're at the point now where people don't care about the PS4 anymore, bro. Like they want the PS5. They want news on the PS5. And it's August. We had the PS5 presentation. Presumably this console's coming out in a couple of months. And I think that people just want to see more of the PS5. So I think Sony's got to recognize, at least at this point, you don't need to do any more state of plays for the, unless you're going to have, I mean, I'm surprised Cyberpunk wasn't here or something, but there's no reason. Anything going forward needs to be PS5, I think. Because that's what people want. That's what people expect. So
yeah, and then Cyberpunk just released a new gameplay trailer recently, I believe, right? So
right. Yeah.
That is a little baffling why, if this is a state of play for your third-party partners, right, that are bringing games to PS4 and PS5, why wasn't this Cyberpunk trailer in there? Like, surely it was ready, right? It came out just a few days later. So,
well, I wonder if Sony thought like, oh, you know what? We're going to combat Microsoft's presentation, which was like an hour long of just nothing but third-party games coming to Game Pass. And a lot of them were like these kind of indie games too. If they thought, oh, we'll just put out a state of play to show people, like in addition to our PS5 lineup, all these games can be played on the PS5 and the PS4. But it's just like the presentation itself. I feel like that presentation could have been like 20 minutes with Crash Bandicoot 4 being the most awesome. But
instead it was about double that, right?
Yeah, it was. Dude, that Godfall trailer, oh my God. Anyways, enough said on that. So I think we set our piece on this. Let's move on to our next topic here and keep this ship rolling. So Tokyo RPG Factory and Studio Istolia, I think like the company's closed now, and I'm still not going to be able to say it correctly. Istolia. They've closed down, or Istolia's closed down, and together collectively they posted a $1.7 million loss. Now, this is for the subsidiaries of Square Enix, so this is individual losses themselves. This, Square Enix is not in danger of closing their doors. They're fine. The main company's, still profitable, but they have these sub companies they've created where Square Enix owns a majority of the company. But the idea was to set up these companies with independent studios with smaller teams in order to kind of remove that corporate element from them, right? So you have Tokyo RPG Factory where they have a team of like 25 people and they make these games like I Am Setsuna, Lost Sphere, Oninaki. And the idea was, a smaller team, more creativity, kind of an indie feel to it, might have a unique audience. And then Studio Istolia was created with after recruiting Hideo Baba, which comes from the Tales franchise, and he was working on Project Prelude Rune, but that game was canceled and Hideo Baba quit the company. So then the studio was shut down. So, like I said, collectively they've lost $1.7 million, but the majority of it came from Tokyo RPG Factory this year with $1.4 million lost. And this is a big deal. I mean, Studio Istolia is kind of understandable because the studio closed. You're going to lose money because you're closing something, right? Ideally, they sold stuff. They sold assets, whatever they sold to kind of make up for some of that. But RPG Factory, Tokyo RPG Factory, this is the year that Oninaki was released. And they lost $1.4 million. So that's not good when the year your game comes out, you're losing money. But to kind of look at the game sales here for Tokyo RPG Factory, we have, and this is going to be the first week only because they kind of keep this hidden a little bit. But I Am Setsuna 2016, right? When that game came out, first week, 62,000 units were sold in the first week. Then Lost Sphere came out in 2017. First week, 13,000. Big drop off. Then Oninaki in 2019. 25,000 units in the first week. So just to give a kind of an idea what the sales have been like. And I mean, this isn't the first year Tokyo RPG Factory lost money either. After I Am Setsuna, they lost $2.6 million. And they lost again this year, $1.4 million. The only year they did not lose money was 2018. And that was a year they didn't release a game. So you got to think, is Square looking at this and saying, you know, you guys aren't very, like, you're at least break even, you know?
Right.
But we got some more information here specifically, but I guess let's just dive into it here and we can kind of refer back to some of the other stuff that we have. But what do you think about this, Stan? Like, what do you specifically with Tokyo RPG Factory? Why do you think they're struggling so much?
Well, I think a big reason is the price of their games, right? They release them at $50.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's been all three of them, right? Even I Am Setsuna. I was tongue-tied there for a minute. Even that one was debut game was $50 new, right? At launch.
Yeah. I believe so. I know I bought Lost Sphere for $50 and Oninaki was 50. So I have to imagine I Am Setsuna, which was a lot of hype behind that game. I'm sure that was $50 as well.
Yeah, that's not a very compelling price for what people think they're getting, which is kind of like a 15 to 20 hour, maybe a little bit over 20 hours experience, right?
Yeah, and it's competing with like the indie market, which is weird. But most of those games, like Crosscode was, I think, $20, and that game's like 45 hours, 45 to 50 hours, you know. And like I Am Setsuna, I think that I beat that in like 20 hours. So yeah, I think you're right though on the price point being a factor. Because I was thinking about it this week. I bought Ghost of Tsushima for $60. So are you telling me that Oninaki being $10 less than that is of equal, like similar value? There's no way. I mean, I was playing Ghost of Tsushima and it's like photorealism, like the graphics. And it's just like, it's a great game, by the way, but like, there's no way. There's no way. Like there's such a Square Enix tax on this. And what I find so baffling is I was able to find like total sales for Oninaki. And in 2019, they sold 600,000 copies at $50 a pop. Now, 600,000, I feel like that's respectable. I mean, that's not a runaway hit, but I think Nier Automata sold like 2.5 million, and that was like a smash hit for them. So 600,000 copies at $50. How are they not making money?
Right.
What's that?
Yeah, breaking even.
Yeah, what are they doing? I mean, I haven't beaten Oninaki, but I played it, and they definitely upped the production values for Oninaki. I definitely think Oninaki was a step in the right direction. I actually liked I Am Setsuna, by the way, but I paid $20 for it because I bought it a couple of years later. But yeah, I just there's something not right with Tokyo RPG Factory, because you have such a small group of people working on it. The graphics themselves are not, like I Am Setsuna in particular was all snow based, so there wasn't a lot of variety. Like you said, they're short. So the idea that they're not making money on this is very difficult. And I think also I really think that them hyping the first one up, I Am Setsuna, really hurt them.
Yeah, I mean, I played it for about 8 hours. I didn't finish it. I got kind of bored with it. But from what I got from it was Chrono Trigger's battle system, right? But not as well done. Not as good, in my opinion. And kind of Final Fantasy X's story premise, but also not quite as compelling as Final Fantasy X, in my opinion. Right. So I got the feeling that like I've played a better story than the story that's being presented to me, and I've played better gameplay for the gameplay that's being presented to me, and I got kind of bored of it like pretty fast. And I usually try to finish everything I start. So
Yeah. See, with
I
Am Setsuna, I beat the whole game, and I don't know. I think at one point, like this was when the podcast first started, and for some reason, I thought me and Eric were in agreement that we were going to review this game. I think that's what it was. So I beat the whole game, and then he was like, "I didn't agree to this." I was like, "God damn it, Eric!" So I was just like, "I just beat this whole game," but I think he was like, "I still have to beat it." Or anyway, we ended up going with a different game, which was fine, probably anyways. But I have to say that it has a really good ending. I really liked it for that reason.
Okay.
So I do think of the 3 games, I Am Setsuna was, well, I haven't beaten Oninaki. What I'm really getting at here is Lost Sphere was terrible. And I think that Lost Sphere was just a terrible thing for Tokyo RPG Factory. Because I Am Setsuna, while it hyped it up like it was Chrono Trigger, it wasn't. But I feel like there was enough feeling around the game that this one's decent. Perhaps the next one will be the gym, right? You know, they're just getting their feet wet. You know, they're still figuring everything out. Perhaps the next game will be the big one. And dude, they Lost Sphere, there was some hype for that, and then they put out that demo. I don't know if you remember, but they put out a free demo on the Switch, the PS4, and the PC. And there were lots of people that played this demo of Lost Sphere that were excited. They planned on buying the game. And then they played that demo, and they said they're not playing the game now. They're not buying the game. And
Ouch.
I think that really hurt their sales because Lost Sphere was just so generic and boring. So I almost feel like Oninaki should have been their second game. So I don't know.
Yeah, I didn't play Lost Sphere at all, the demo or the full game. And I played Oninaki, the demo, and I wasn't all that impressed with.
Did you like that better than Setsuna? Do you think that was better, like a step in the right direction? I felt like it was a different premise. It kind of had some interesting like story components to it. It was beautiful.
I do think the story was more interesting because it was more of a unique idea. Well, I guess not unique, but something you don't see as often in the genre, right? The idea of like communicating with the dead and the afterlife and everything, and that kind of
right.
I was kind of intrigued in that, but the gameplay didn't really grab me. So
yeah,
and I didn't try it out. So
yeah. So I guess for why is Tokyo RPG struggling so much, we've kind of nailed it down here to being basically overhyped, far too expensive, and ultimately games just being kind of generic, not really anything special.
Yeah, they don't really excel at one thing. Like yeah, you to really like catch fire, I think a game needs like really good gameplay, a really good story, or like a really good art aesthetic to it.
Oninaki had that though. I think the art aesthetic department.
Maybe more so. I'm not a big fan of the character models that they use actually with like the
no feet.
No, the little tiny feet. Yeah, Alliance Alive kind of has a similar aesthetic, I think, to the characters, right?
Right.
Alliance Alive.
Yep.
Yeah. I don't know. Some people I think like that more. I don't know what to call it other than like a 3D chibi style look to the character.
It looks kind of cheap looking. It's not. It doesn't really fit like a nostalgic feel. It's like it's got like a modern edge to it, but like I just like it doesn't resonate with me, and I think they're trying to. I'm their target audience. It doesn't. I don't know.
Yeah, that has to be part of it, right? Because like Octopath Traveler came out and sold like over 2 million copies at this point, I think, and that was like that's a completely different art style, but it's like really grabs you, right? It's like it's that 2D 3D thing. It's unique. It's new yet familiar, right?
But it's got a modern edge to it.
Yeah, it's 2D sprites in a 3D environment, and really just leaned all into like the retro feel, the classic 2D RPG feel, whereas I Am Setsuna has the gameplay of the classic kind of 2D RPG, but then like more of like a, I don't know, like you said, it doesn't really feel retro or classic. It's something else, but I don't know. It's probably a combination of things. Like also there's no like household name behind the studio. Like we saw just last week, Murayama
With
right?
Ayuden.
Yeah, like just his name behind a project and the rest of his team, like Suikoden team behind the project, is like enough to fuel that game's Kickstarter success. So
That would be way cooler if they took Hiroki Ito and they were just like, okay, we're going to give you a studio and it's going to be 30 people and you're going to lead it.
yeah,
Hiroki Ito, like the director of Final Fantasy IX.
yeah, they don't have a household name, I guess, for hardcore RPG fans to be like, oh, Tokyo RPG Factory, that's the subsidiary or the kind of the indie company run by Square Enix that's being led by Ito or whoever.
Yeah.
Like
Well, it's kind of weird because they have to find like a mid-tier person, right? Because they can't put Tetsuya Nomura in charge of an indie studio because he's like their main guy right now, right? He sells Kingdom Hearts, he sells the big games. So they have to find somebody that's big name, but they're not like really doing anything right at the moment, you know? But they got plenty of them.
Like who did I mention last week with the
Matsuno?
Matsuno, yeah.
Yeah, that'd be a good one.
Yeah.
What's he doing?
What's he doing? Give him a call. Give him a call. Yeah.
Maybe Nobuo can do some music for a classic game.
Yeah. Something like that. Something for like if you like we already said it was a mistake, but like if you're gonna say your game is like Chrono Trigger, right? But you don't have any kind of name like person behind the game that is like reminds people of like those classic games, then it's kind of.
Well, to be fair, they did bring on somebody from Chrono Trigger for Oninaki, but they brought him on like 8 months before the game was coming out to kind of go over the story a little bit. And there's only so much you can do once the game's, 60% of the way done, right?
Yeah.
Anyways, I mean, I'm still baffled that they didn't make money off Oninaki with it selling 600,000 copies. I just can't wrap my mind around like what are they spending that money on? Because I think about like Vagrant Story, and that sold like 300,000 copies, right? And I guess that was like kind of seen as a failure to Square Enix, but still, I mean, that's anyways. Because
maybe I'm sure not all of them were at $50, I guess. Right.
That's true. It's 2019 though. It came out last summer, so I imagine the game's still pretty much full price, right?
Most places probably, yeah.
So I don't know. I really think at this point that Tokyo RPG Factory has basically run its course. I do like the fact that they come out with multiple games in like a 4-year period. We got 3 games. So that's kind of why I've been interested in them still and checking out their games, just because I know another one's coming around the corner, right? And I want to support that. I want them to continue making games on a frequent basis like that, because I hate waiting 5 years for an RPG, but I don't know. It's just, they got to put out something decent. And
I would say, like, Square Enix, if you're listening, the next Tokyo RPG Factory game, $30, right? Just release it at $30.
Yeah, but if they didn't make money at 50, do you think they'll just sell twice as many copies at 30?
I don't know, but like, just
whatever you got to do. Yeah.
Maybe if you absolutely have to, like, cut back on the development time of this next one a little bit, right? But then try and release it at $30 and see if that helps turn a better profit, Yeah. Like,
well,
yeah, I don't think you can expect them to suddenly hit their stride and everybody be on board when you're still releasing like you said, which is kind of viewed as more of like an indie experience, right? In terms of length and also like quality of the graphics and such. Like how can you compete in that space at $50? Like it's tough.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. What do you think that Square should continue this practice of buying these or creating these little separate studios with these smaller teams? Because I was thinking about it, it would almost make more sense. Because they did this with Studio Istolia too, which they didn't even release a game. So, I mean, props to Tokyo RPG Factory. At least they came out with the game, right? Studio Istolia didn't even come out with anything. Still baffled that Tokyo RPG lost more money than a studio that didn't produce anything. But anyways, I mean, I was thinking about like, what if instead of just creating these, kind of like in the vision that you had with just putting somebody well known, but maybe Square should just look at some of these indie companies that they're trying to compete with and get in that known space, and maybe look at acquiring something like Radical Fish Games, which is the developer of Crosscode. I mean, I don't know if they would sell their company to them, but I mean, get somebody that's clearly talented and knows what they're doing, and help them with the publishing and stuff like that. But it's a Square Enix title now. I mean, hopefully they don't pollute them or dilute them, and hopefully they can still be the same thing they are now. But like, this ain't working because, it's not just like, I feel like Square just looks at it like it's a checklist. Like, okay, we have 20 people that work on this game. It'll be just like the glory days. Well, no, you still have to have talented people. You still have to have people that want to work there. You still have to have people with a vision and things like that. So it's just get people that are, I don't want to say like Tokyo RPG Factory isn't passionate, but I just think they should reach out and acquire companies if they're going to continue to try to do this and help those rather than try to create really expensive, crappy games.
Right. On their own. It's tough because I think like they've definitely done that on the AAA side, right? They've acquired like Crystal Dynamics to make their Tomb Raider games and their Avengers game coming up.
Right.
They've acquired Eidos Montreal, which does like the Deus Ex games. So they're not like gun shy on like making a big purchase, right?
Not at
for
all.
like
No.
Play studio. I don't know. I don't know why they wouldn't look into purchasing some of the more successful smaller companies. Maybe it's because they see from their own, Tokyo RPG Factory. Maybe they see because they're just not profitable.
They had Octopath Traveler, which did well. Bravely Default, right? Which is kind of not really their thing, but still. I don't know. I just get the impression that I'm not sure how much longer we're going to be seeing Tokyo RPG Factory.
Yeah. Like I said, I hope they get at least one more shot at it, and please release the game at a competitive price. And then if that doesn't work, then like it's in the cards, right? Like at that point you've tried all you can. I feel. And then at that point you release like a Tokyo RPG Factory collection or something, right? Like you bundle all the games together for kind of a collector's
Chrono Trigger inspiration collection. Yeah.
Yeah. So you put Setsuna and Lost Sphere and Oninaki and the fourth game all together and sell them all for like 40 to 50 or something bucks,
See, but I wonder if part of the reason why they continue to fund Tokyo RPG Factory is because maybe they view it as kind of a marketing tactic, like the fact that they're still involved with this stuff in a sense,
Yeah.
Because that is something that companies will do, right? They'll just fund something that's not profitable because, I mean, you see it with the music industry a lot of times, like a record label to get Ozzy Osbourne on their record label. They'll take a loss for Ozzy Osbourne to get on there to sign Ozzy and give him such a good deal because they can go to other bands and say, you want to be on the label with Ozzy? Here's the deal. Like we'll get you on Ozfest, like blah blah blah, and they'll just be ripping everyone off because they got Ozzy's name on there, they got Metallica or whatever, or the Rolling Stones or something. So I imagine that this in effect helps their brand because it helps people stay in touch with Square still doing some of the stuff like they remembered when they were kids, as opposed to just always only doing the AAA stuff. But now that Octopath Traveler has kind of filled that void, I don't know how much time Tokyo RPG Factory has. So, I mean, they closed Studio Istolia, so they didn't even let them make a game. So,
yeah.
But anyways,
I get what you're saying. Yeah, it is definitely something that they might view as important, like to say that they have, like Square Enix as a company, as a publisher, like we have something for everyone. I think that's definitely a strategy that they implement. Like even if a game like the Tokyo RPG Factory game is not profitable, it is kind of a feather in the cap to say like, well, we have traditional, classic style RPGs like that
games,
like Octopath Traveler and such. So they're like trying to appeal to all audiences. Yeah.
Well, we'll see. We'll see if Tokyo RPG Factory gets another game. Obviously, Studio Istolia, like we said, they closed shop, so they're not going to, unfortunately. But the future's yet to be seen.
Mm-hmm.
Let's move on. We got a quick RPG fan. Just want to tell you about our media partner, and then we're going to move on to our Discord questions. So if y'all are not aware, rpgfan.com is our media partner. And if you've never been to their website, strongly suggest you go check it out. They just revamped the entire thing, but they have RPG news on there practically every day. They got game reviews going all the way back to the late 90s. They have soundtrack reviews. They have RPG podcasts. In addition to our own, there's Random Encounter, which does more like news and discussions type thing. And then Retro Encounter, which is more of a RPG like discussion podcast where they focus on a specific game. And so it's a really great being media partners with them. And we want you to go definitely check them out. They do have a YouTube channel as well, where they're starting to do more YouTube reviews to complement their written reviews. So strongly recommend that you go check them out. They've been great to work with. All right, let's move on to our first Discord question here from BioPhoenix, who says, what RPG has been the best sounding food you wish you had in real life? Now, like I said before, I think this is the oddest question we've ever gotten. And this has definitely had me thinking up some. But Stan, why don't you start us off here with what RPG has the best sounding food you wish you had in real life?
Sure. I had to think about this question because in general, like RPGs have like cooking systems or food crafting system, right? It'll often be part of the crafting system in the game, like in the like the Tales games are famous for this, right? But in a lot of those games, like you're just cooking normal sounding food. You're cooking noodles, right? Or steak or something, which is like, I can have that in real life, and I have had that in real life. It's not super appealing that it exists in a video game. You know what I mean?
It doesn't make you crave that. It's just, I got it.
It's just in the game, and it gives me some kind of stats or bonus. But one thing that did impress me or make me think like, oh, I wish I had that was the food that you get in Monster Hunter World, like the platter that they serve you.
Mm-hmm.
That game is like ridiculous. Like it's a huge meat platter. There's like ham and chicken and like skewers with like shrimp and like kind of kebabs like all over it. And it's just like there's like the drink is like a giant wooden mug, like bigger than the characters, like way bigger than Barb. He's like drinking out of a barrel practically. And he starts eating and then it skips, and of course your character somehow ate the whole thing, even though that's like a mountain of protein like sitting in front of it.
Right, right. They just kind of like, okay, buddy.
Yeah,
I,
yeah.
I have to see it to believe it. Yeah.
And then it boosts your stats like really high or whatever because before you go out on your monster quest, your monster hunt. So that's
I want to quickly
to try. Yeah.
pop this balloon here real quick because while I have never been a monster hunter, okay, I was in the Marine Corps, and I think just about anybody that's ever done any kind of like sports activity or anything can let you know that is not a good idea for you to eat a huge meal before a bunch of cardio. It just is not. It's gonna murder you. And
I've heard you want to have like a pasta or something like carbs.
Yeah, but you like generally, I think it's usually like the night before or something like that. Like for me personally, because when I was in the Marine Corps, we had to do a lot of like, I don't want to say long distance running, but it was like 5 or 6 miles in the morning, which is pretty long. And yeah, it's generally like anything that you put in your stomach, you're going to throw up. So like you can get all the carbs you want, but that's not going to help because it's coming back out, So, anyways, but you posted, you gave me a link here. You said somebody actually made this meal.
Yeah, that was years ago back when the game came out. Somebody,
so
there's a that they made.
Up top here, this is the picture that you were talking about with like, or one of the meals anyways. And then down below, this is the actual image of somebody's like recreating this meal, right?
Yeah. It's pretty ridiculous, right?
Yeah. I mean, hey, that's so much food though. Like I can't imagine that's all in like one tray. This has got to be for like a whole family or something. Cause
yeah, that would last me 3 meals at least.
3, dude, this would last me like a week. I don't know. Let's look at all that rice. Oh my God.
Yeah. There's a lot of rice there.
Oh.
Yeah. And it's got like the kebabs with like the shrimp and
oh yeah, dude.
That is, like half a pineapple there. It's great.
It's a warrior's meal.
Yeah, that looks good.
Yeah.
Not all at once though. I wanna make it to the next meal.
My Monster Hunter world, we have refrigerators, and microwaves. So for me, that's a good pick. For me, I was really trying to think about this, and this is a difficult situation to even like ponder because, like you said, a lot of games have this component, but it's not something I really think about. It's just sometimes it's just something like I just find annoying, to be honest. That like the character's hungry, I got to feed him something. So, I'm gonna go with the Final Fantasy 15, just because Ignis really pushes it in your face that he's come up with a new recipe, and it like literally shoves it in your face, and you have to like it drops everything that's going on, stop everything. Ignis has come up with a new recipe. So like I'm going to bring that up, and there's something specific I want to bring up with that. But the reason I brought that up was because I thought it was funny, even when it didn't mean to be funny, because it would come up at times where it was very awkward, something dramatic, and Ignis would look at a French fry and I've come up with a new recipe. And it's like, dude, it's French fry and ketchup, but anyways, what I liked about it, was it was so in your face about it that once Ignis is hurt and he's unable to do that for a time, right? Mm-hmm. It kind of really brought home that character, what happened to that character, because that's a core component that you knew about him. And now this isn't something that's happening anymore. And it kind of really made what happened to him have a lot more weight with me. So I like that cooking food aspect and how it ties into his story. I know that's not what BioPhoenix was wanting to know, but it's
a great point. Yeah.
Yeah. But if I had to pick something that Ignis did make, I was looking up Final Fantasy 15 meals, so I kind of cheated, but there was one thing. It was called, I'm gonna pull it up on the screen. It's called smoked Bahamut. And I don't know what a smoked Bahamut tastes like, but I have to imagine it's quite nutritious.
Yeah.
Like if there's anything that would give you abundance of energy after eating like basically a smoked mystical creature, I would have to imagine would do that. So, I'm going with the smoked Bahamut, if I had to. It looks just like something you would get at like a Luby's or something, but it looks good. So
Nice.
yeah, that's what I'm going with.
Yeah, that's good. I wonder what like a behemoth would taste like too. Makes me wonder now. All
Yeah,
those.
well, I feel like it would already be. How do you smoke it? Because don't they breathe fire like already? Like so, like it must be a very intense heat in order to make that work. And how much meat would it provide? Because I would imagine, like a buffalo would feed like a whole tribe of like Native Americans for like weeks, right? So
yeah.
these creatures are like 30 times as big as that. So this would just be for like 2 years if you could refrigerate the meat. Anyways, we're getting way too into this like science of this, but so we're gonna move on to the next question here for the sake of time. We have from Decoy Manta, which is your favorite non-traditional leveling system? This doesn't mean that a level by level system is completely gone, by the way, but more that character growth is enhanced through an interesting concept system. Examples include things like skill trees and job systems, as well as more unique ideas like Final Fantasy IX Sphere Grid. Or gives some other examples here: Chrono Crosses, boss only star levels, etc. Stan, take it away. I know you got a couple examples.
Yeah, I was thinking about it, and I'm torn. Like, I really like some of the later FF games, like FF10 and the Sphere Grid. I enjoyed that. I like the Final Fantasy 12, the international version of the license board, where you have to pick like a class, and then that class has its own individual license board. I think that's really cool. And I also like Tales game, Tales of Graces, which has a title system where you earn titles in game by getting certain achievements, right? Like some of them are really easy, like you killed 50 enemies, like here's a title. You used whatever Demon Fang like 100 times. Here's a Demon Fang novice title or something. And then you get stats by equipping the titles and like mastering them, essentially. So they're like it's just there's like a collection element to it. Like you want to try and unlock all the titles because then you're mastering your character. You're getting your character's stats as high as you possibly can that way. That was a favorite of mine. But overall, I think I have to go with the job system from Final Fantasy Tactics. I really like that because like you've got the job switching element.
Mm-hmm.
And I like that when you gain an ability or like a spell or something through one class, you can carry it. You can switch to another class and then take that with you. Like you can equip like black magic in one of your action slots, for example, but then be a knight or whatever. Or you can get like a dragoon's like field like jumping ability, but then take that with you as like an archer and then like jump up to a tall place and like be shooting down at people,
Yeah.
That's really satisfying. And I like that you're not just collecting like generic job points. Like when the job points, what I'm trying to say is they're specific to each job, right? So I can't earn job points as like a knight,
right?
And then just not spend them and then switch over to Black Mage and suddenly have a ton of points to spend. I have to earn the points as each individual class. And so I think that's more satisfying for me anyway.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with most of what you said. I do prefer the original version for Final Fantasy 12 over the Zodiac Age, just because I like the mystery factor of the license board. I do think it would have been better if it was more randomized, meaning, you couldn't just Google the license board and know where everything is.
Okay. So if like, if it had the individual, like license boards, you're okay with that, but it's just the idea is like you can map out where everything is, makes it.
Well, no. So I don't like the class ones.
Okay.
Just because I think that there wasn't, the game wasn't designed for that. And the way they implement it in Zodiac Age, in order to fluff it out, they fluff it out with stat boosts and HP upgrades. And so you end up getting like 5 times as many HP upgrades that you got from the original license board. And so I think for that reason, it kind of dumbs down the gameplay. And so I like the class structure for sure. But I think that for that reason, I didn't like the license board element with that, because they didn't have enough. They weren't going to come up with a bunch of new moves, right? For the Zodiac Age.
It wasn't balanced properly.
Right, exactly. But I do like the freedom of having like a bunch of hybrid characters from the originals Final Fantasy 12, where it's just a giant license board, and I could make everybody the same, just godlike being if I wanted, right? I just like that, but I like the fact that I could not see, like it wouldn't tell you what the next license would. You could only see the ones next to you, but you couldn't see further down the license board, so you couldn't like map out like, okay, 9 battles and let me get to the 500 HP. You'd have no idea. So there's that exploration factor of you trying to just like, find something. And once you did like land close to an HP upgrade, you'd be like, Jesus Christ, I've been looking for that. Right. So it was exciting, but again, it's the same license board every time. So once you know it or you look it up online, it kind of defeats that mystery element to it. So I will criticize it for that. So I'll just say that like Zodiac Age has its issues and the original has its issues. But what I really do like is kind of like a little bit of what because I'm playing Ghost of Tsushima right now. And it kind of takes a Horizon Zero Dawn approach too, but a little bit further, in that there isn't really a level mechanic. But in order for you to gain skill points, you have to take on meaningful challenge. So, you have to beat like a sub boss or like a main boss of like a city or something like that, or of a story campaign, in order to gain a skill point, which you can use to improve your character. And so you can defeat, archery men all day long, but you're not going to get anything really towards your skill point. But what you do get from defeating those guys is you do get like basically currency, right? Which you can then take the Horizon Zero Dawn route of going to the armorer and then crafting armor and like basically putting upgrades on your armor and, kind of approaching the game from that way, where you can kind of take that custom creation. So it's hitting it on both ends of the spectrum, where you can have that creative input that I really like, but also kind of that challenge as well. And I really liked it in Horizon Zero Dawn as well, because like if you didn't know how to use your equipment correctly, like you would pretty much die.
Yeah,
I mean,
you just
you need to use it correctly. And even your armor, like there's certain types of armor that you use in specific situations. And so it just adds a lot of gameplay for that reason. And I mean, this is all like a similar thing to leveling up, right? It's just adding a little bit more variety to the game. And Final Fantasy 12, to go back to that real quick, because I forgot about this, is I don't think that game should have had a level up mechanic at all. I think it should, to live and die by the license board. If you play Zodiac Age without being able to level up, it's so much more fun, right? It's just, yeah, because it's just a crutch, man. You need to get rid of it. Nope. You pick and choose what you want. You want HP? Go get HP. You want attack? Go get attack. You don't get a little upgrade every 10 minutes, so.
Yeah. Like Final Fantasy X is kind of like that. Right, you get a sphere level, but really all that means is that's how many steps you can move on the sphere grid and acquire new stats and abilities. But the characters don't gain any stats from gaining a level, like a sphere level. You have to use that sphere level to pick something, right, essentially, and gain a stat. So yeah, I think FF12 probably is better without the individual levels.
The problem with 10, though, I would say, is that they pad it out with blank slots. So you're using up, stones or whatever, I can't remember what they're called, for no upgrade at all, which it's not that big of a problem, but it's just kind of like, this is padding this game out,
Later on, you can add a sphere to the sphere grid, and that
Right.
gives you customization of how you
Right.
improve your characters. But it is annoying, like especially in the beginning when you pass a bunch of empty ones and you don't have anything to put in them.
Yeah. So, anyways, definitely a very interesting question from both BioPhoenix and Decoy Manta. Was there something else you wanted to say, Stan? You look like you had something else linger on your tongue.
I think we pretty much covered it. So Ghost of Tsushima is your favorite way you've
Well, I don't want to say favorite.
most recent favorite?
I would say it's one I'm kind of experiencing right now. I'm still getting used to it. We'll see. Because I still like the standard level system. I just like the straightforward nature of that. But it is interesting how I'm approaching it, and that it's kind of taking the two different routes of the Horizon Zero Dawn route, and then the I don't want to say Final Fantasy VIII route, because